For this evening, I'd like to invite you to meditate on creation of man in the garden and on my own creation and the way God made me, what He made me for, all the gifts He's given me with creation. The greatest gift of His love, the greatest sign of His love for me, my own existence, His own desire for me to be. And as an introduction, I want to draw your attention to the number from the Catechism, number 301. Catechism 301. With creation, God does not abandon His creatures to themselves. He not only gives them being and existence, but also, and at every moment, He upholds and sustains them in being, enables them to act, and brings them to their final end. God isn't just He doesn't just make us and leave it up to us to get to our end. He's guiding us. He's sustaining us, bringing us to that end. Recognizing this utter dependence with respect to the Creator is a source of wisdom and freedom, of joy and confidence. So to think about that, to recognize that I'm totally dependent on the Creator and that He's there sustaining me at every moment. This gives me freedom. This gives me joy. This gives me confidence. So one of the sources that I want you to focus on for this meditation is that text of the Principle and Foundation directly from St. Ignatius' Spiritual Exercises. This is kind of like the summary of what we're supposed to found the rest of the exercises on, but it's really the foundation of our life. It's supposed to be the foundation of our life. So let's read it, and then I want to make a couple commentaries about the wording and the difficulty we might have with that. Human beings are created to praise, reverence, and serve God our Lord, and by this means to save their souls. The other things on the face of the earth are created for the human beings, to help them in the pursuit of the end for which they were created. From this it follows that we ought to use these things to the extent that they help us toward our end, and free ourselves from them to the extent that they hinder us from it. To attain this, it is necessary to make ourselves indifferent to all created things in regard to everything which is left to our free will and is not forbidden. Consequently, on our own part, we ought not to seek health rather than sickness, wealth rather than poverty, honor rather than dishonor, a long life rather than a short one, and so on in all matters. Rather, we ought to desire and choose only that which is more conducive to the end for which we are created. So I just want to comment on the fact that everything St. Ignatius says here is true. First of all, this is what we're made for. We're made to praise, reverence, and serve God our Lord. The main goal of this meditation is to let that sink in. What is the goal of my existence? What's the goal of my creation? Why did God even put me here? The big existential question. The big question that so many people are afraid to ask themselves and so many people are afraid to answer, that we know intellectually. We need to ask God the grace of knowing it with our hearts. However, I think that it's difficult. Maybe you feel this way too. That it kind of has a bit of a moralistic flavor. This little text here. It's like, because God made you, you better do this. You ought to do this. Like I have to. Like I'm under a law that tells me that I have to love and serve Him, and I need to use things if they'll help me and get rid of them if they hinder me. So it's kind of like, I don't know, I feel kind of triggered by that, like it's like I'm being put in chains, my freedom is being limited. What do I think we can say about this? I think that this is kind of like, we're kind of like the kid. I met a kid the other day, it was more than a month ago, but anyways, who was visiting their family, And they were in some kind of funny, kind of half-joking argument with his mom about how his mom owed him $20 or something like that. And I was like laughing at him. I'm like, your mom owes you $20? How much do you owe your mom? Like if you were to start adding up the stuff that your mom has given you and the cost of all of that, how far would you get? Or like if your mom started charging you for room and board, or if your mom started charging you for, I don't know, the cell phone that you're using, the food that she fed you, your whole life, you would be infinitely indebted to your mom. There's no way you would ever pay it off. Well, maybe. If you started paying off once you're 18 or something, you might get it paid off eventually, But to think that your mom owes you $20 is absolutely absurd. So kids don't like that. We talk to them that way. But anyway, it's true. It's absolutely true, So that's I think that's kind of the way it is with us and God. When St. Ignatius says, this is what you ought to do, it's like, I got my existence from you. I got my body from you. I got the air I breathe from you. Everything. It's like I can't even think without you. Go back to that passage from the Catechism. God is sustaining everything that I do right now. I cease to exist without you. And my existence is the most beautiful, most wonderful thing. Maybe after my redemption, but it's up there. The most beautiful, wonderful thing God has given me is the fact that I'm here, the fact that I can breathe and see, and all the other gifts on top of that. Some gifts that not everyone has, that I have. Many gifts that not everyone has, that I have. Many gifts throughout my life that I have. We want to move our hearts to this utter, infinite gratitude towards God for making us, for giving us this wonderful life surrounded by beauty and goodness, for giving me all of my abilities, my talents, the gifts of nature that I have. Maybe a good image is the image of a little baby who just learned how to crawl. Have you ever seen that before? Maybe some of you have little siblings or nieces and nephews. I've got tons of nieces and nephews, so they're like always exploring things and looking at things, picking things up and trying them out and trying to break them and just seeing what the world is like, As we grow up, we lose the sense of wonder at what the world is like. We get so used to how amazing it is, and it's good to remember that. Oh, look at this thing. It's a hand. God gave me a hand. I wonder what I can do with that, Oh, it grabs things. Oh, look, wow, so cool, Or my eyes. Have you ever seen a kid like being held by his mom, like poking them in the eye? Like, what is that thing? It's like, oh, that's what you use for seeing. Oh, I've got them too, There's like this whole exploration thing. I know the same thing happens to us too, like when you get like a new, Father Jarek recommended this phone to me. It's got a really good camera. You can take pictures of the moon, like zoomed in 100 times. That look awesome, And so like when you get a new camera like that, you're like, oh, I wonder what cool stuff this can do. I'm going to try it out all the time and be taking pictures of everything. And it has like this little pen thing that you can set up your camera and then take pictures from a distance, right? It's like, I got to try out this new device, right? So let's try to experience that marvel and that wonder for our life. It's that act of zooming out and looking at reality with fresh eyes from the big picture. My life, my existence. It's so wonderful. So wonderful. And I forget that so often. So I'll offer you two passages to meditate on. One is Genesis chapter 1, 26 to 31. Genesis 1, 26. It's the creation of man. God says, "Let us make man in our own image after our likeness, and let him have dominion over the fish of the sea and the birds of heaven, and over the livestock and over all the earth, and every creeping thing that creeps on it." All the creepy things. Man has dominion over everything. All this stuff was made for you. And And so God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him. Male and female, he created them. Maybe that sparks like some theology of the body stuff for you, and you're like, man is made for communion. Man is made for this interpersonal relationship. Usually when you ask people what the best thing about their life is, they talk about other people. Friends. You ask people at camp what the best part of camp was, the first thing they say is usually the people that I met, the new friends that I made. Relationship. We're made for communion. He made us in his image because he's a communion. It's probably the greatest gift that he's given us. And then verse 28 says, and God blessed them. God didn't make you for suffering. He didn't make you for dysfunction or for fighting or for disorder or for brokenness or sadness or loneliness. We experience all those things. But that wasn't part of his plan. His plan was to bless you. His plan was to give you good things. Only good things. That reminds me of this beautiful story, a priest who spoke to a conference of priests in Dallas. He was speaking about how to deal with young men who have problems with chastity, problems with addiction. He said a teenager, really young, came in and confessed that he was addicted to pornography. And he asked him a few questions. He was teaching the priests how to ask these questions. He asked them how long it's been, how frequent it is, if they've tried to overcome it before. And that's how you get an idea if there's really an addiction there. And the kid had, like, since he was really young, he had fallen into it by accident and just got stuck on it. And the priest told him, God never wanted this to happen to you. God never wanted this to happen to you. It's like what God really wanted was for you to live a life that's peaceful and happy and fulfilled. He never wanted the brokenness that you experience. What he made you for was all good things in his original plan. The other passage that you might get a lot of light from is Psalm 139. This is one of the most beautiful Psalms. You can use this every day if you want for your meditation. Where shall I go from your spirit, or where shall I flee from your presence? If I ascended to heaven, you are there. If I make my bed in Sheol, you are there. If I take the wings of the morning and dwell on the uttermost parts of the sea, even there your hand shall lead me, and your right hand shall hold me. If I say, surely the darkness shall cover me, and the light about me be night, even darkness is not dark to you. The night is as bright as the day, for darkness is as light with you. You formed my inward parts. You knit me together in my mother's womb. I praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Wonderful are your works. My soul knows it very well. My frame was not hidden from you. When I was being made in secret, intricately woven in the depths of the earth, your eyes saw my unformed substance. God is everywhere. He knows everything. He knows me no matter where I go, and he made me. He made me wonderful. I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. Nothing in me is hidden from God. So there's just a couple ways of doing this meditation. One would be, if you want, you can just meditate on these passages and let it speak to you. Let God's word do what it does. But if you'd like, you can try this little activity. One is to write out a paragraph finishing the sentence. The purpose of my life is ... The purpose of my life is, maybe you're thinking, I don't know what the purpose of my life is yet. I want to be a priest. I'm called to the Legion. I don't know where God's going to send me, what he's going to do with me. It's all part of his mysterious plan. But there are some things you do know about the purpose of your life. Then if you want to add to that, beside that list of things in the purpose of your life. Make a list of the things that normally occupy your day or your attention, your worries, concerns, and thoughts. To what degree do they actually line up with like what the purpose of my life is? Or am I getting lost in little things? That's the zooming out effect, Every day I'm caught up in this, but the purpose of my life is this. That's what we want to look at. How much bigger it is. Another way of doing this meditation is to read Psalm 139 again, imagining it from God's perspective, knitting you together. We did that a little bit in the meditation this morning, a lump of clay being molded. God's doing it. He's thinking through it. And maybe you want to go through all the gifts that God has given you from God's perspective. Okay, what am I going to give this one? I'm going to give him the ability to be really funny, or I'm going to give him a great intellect, or I'm going to give him good athletic skills, good musical skills. Because I want something from him. You could even see him like giving you the things around you that filled your life, and why he gave you those things, and how he planned it, how he planned to give you those things. He planned to give you the parents that he gave you, the family that he gave you, the circumstances in your life. And remember the principle and foundation. I'm created to love, I'm created to reverence, I'm created to serve him. When God's making you, if you're looking at it from his perspective, he's thinking, I want this man to love me. I want this man to serve me. That's what I'm making him for. Just one more little story here. I found formation difficult, especially in philosophy. Philosophy was tough because you get there and you got to learn 2 languages at once. And nobody gets your jokes and everything, so it's kind of miserable. But anyway, when I finished philosophy and got to internship, it was kind of crazy. I was going through a crisis, and I don't think they knew where to assign me because of that. And then finally overcame my crisis and said, I'm gonna renew my vows. We used to renew our vows right at that time, and they sent me to here to be assistant of novices. And I was like, in my first month as assistant of novices, it was just like so busy. There were a lot of novices then, and they were opening up section B, which they only opened up for 1 year because there were a lot coming from the apostolic school that year. So there were 3 assistants, 2 instructors. And anyway, we were really busy, and I was just like totally getting into it though. And, preparing talks and classes, and just like answering questions and stuff. And I realizing that like all of this stuff that I had to do for my ministry, I could actually do. And I was like, wow, this formation stuff works. I didn't know that it was working until I got to try it out. It was kind of like trying out a new phone. It was like, oh wow, this, I've got abilities now that I didn't have before, and things come easy to me that I didn't think were going to come easy to me because I went through all that formation. I went through humanities. I practiced preaching, and I practiced spiritual direction indirectly from receiving it so often, and things like that. So it was a great joy to experience that. And I remember like one day I was exhausted. Been working. It was late at night. Been working really late, and I was actually walking like on that pathway beside the courtyard there, and I was just thinking to myself like, I love this. Like, I was made for this. I was made for this, for ministry, for giving myself, for serving others, for doing good to others in this way. that's a big light, especially after a difficult time of formation. But that's kind of what we want to discover is God made me. He made me for something. And he made me for those things. I think some of the essentials are like the opposite of all the things that I said before that he didn't make us for. He didn't make us for brokenness and for all of the hurt that came with sin. He made us for joy. He made you for delight. He made you for fulfillment. He made you for that sense of satisfaction in your work. He made you for relationships, for bonds with others, for that interpersonal friendships that happen, that fulfill us, that give us joy. He made you for a relationship with him, above all, with the same characteristics of joy and contentment and delight and fulfillment. So let's take that to prayer. Reflect on how he made us, how beautifully, wonderfully he made us, and what he created us for.